The truth about shadow chosen ones that no one talks about. Have you ever felt like you were born with a weight on your chest before you even learned how to breathe freely? Like you were dropped into this world not to blend in, but to carry a burden that others can't see, let alone understand. I'm not talking about depression or anxiety, though they often come along for the ride. I'm talking about something deeper, something spiritual, a hidden contract written in your soul's language long before you had a name. That's the experience of a shadow chosen one, and no one talks about them, at least not like this. You see, most people only talk about the light chosen ones, the ones who walk in peace, who radiate love, who seem to be born already halfway to enlightenment. They're held up as examples, saints in human form. But what if I told you there's another group just as powerful, maybe even more, but forged in darkness? These are the ones who were chosen not by divine light, but by shadow itself. Not because they were evil, but because they were strong enough to carry what others couldn't. You, me, us.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You didn't stumble into this video by accident. Something brought you here. Maybe you're finally ready to hear what no one else has dared to say, that the pain you carry, the chaos you've endured, the darkness that has followed you like a second shadow, has a divine purpose. But before we go deeper, ask yourself, what if the very things you've been told to fear are actually the keys to your spiritual awakening? Let me tell you a story. When I was younger, I thought I was cursed. I had dreams that felt more real than waking life. I'd see things others didn't see. I'd feel emotions that weren't mine. I'd walk into a room and immediately know who was hurting, who was lying, who was hiding something behind their smile. I thought I was broken. I thought I was crazy, but I wasn't. I was being initiated. The shadow chosen ones are not picked because of their purity. They are picked because of their resilience. They are not born with halos, they are born with scars, sometimes physical, often emotional, always spiritual. And it's not because the universe is cruel. It's because your soul volunteered for a mission that others would never survive. Most people live their lives trying to avoid pain. But you were sent here to walk through it, to learn from it, to master it, and then to help others do the same. But here's the secret no one talks about. The darkness that chose you isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to reveal you. It's trying to burn away everything that isn't truly you, so that what remains is something so pure, so fearless, so awakened, that even the light will bow to it. That's the paradox of the shadow chosen ones. We are born in darkness not to live in it, but to understand it so deeply that we become immune to it. Have you ever noticed how some of the most powerful spiritual teachers, mystics and healers have gone through unimaginable suffering? That's not coincidence, that's design. The greater your pain, the deeper your purpose. But no one tells you that when you're young. They just call you too sensitive, too intense, too much. They try to medicate away your visions. They try to silence your voice. They try to normalize your abnormality. But your shadow won't let you sleep. It keeps whispering, wake up, remember. And here's the kicker. Most shadow chosen ones go through what I call the invisible initiation. No temples, no gurus, no ceremonies, just life raw, brutal, beautiful life breaking you open until you finally stop resisting and start listening. That's when the magic begins. That's when you stop asking, why me? And you start asking, what now? You begin to realize that your trauma wasn't just random suffering, it was training. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every heartbreak taught you compassion. Every loss taught you presence. Every dark night of the soul taught you how to hold your own light. You stop feeling like a victim and start walking like a warrior. Not the kind that fights with fists, but the kind that heals with presence. You become the lighthouse in the storm. Not because you were spared the storm, but because you became it and survived. But this path isn't easy. It's lonely. It's confusing. It will make you question your sanity. It will make you want to quit. And that's how you know it's real. Because spiritual awakening isn't a soft, glowing Instagram post. It's a violent unraveling of everything you thought you were. It's ego death, identity death, sometimes even physical death. And yet, somehow, you're still here, still breathing, still watching this, which means your initiation is already underway. So let me ask you something deep, something uncomfortable, something real. What if your suffering wasn't a punishment, but a calling? What if every breakdown you've had was secretly a breakthrough in disguise? What if the darkness that chased you was actually your own soul, trying to catch up to you? The world needs shadow-chosen ons now more than ever, not because we're perfect, but because we've seen the worst and still choose to love. Because we've been to hell and returned with maps. Because we can sit with pain R's and others E without flinching. That's a superpower. That's divine. That's revolutionary. But it all starts with one decision: to stop running from your shadow and to start dancing with it. To look it in the eye and say, I see you. I hear you. Let's do this. And when you do that, something ancient awakens inside you. Something primal. Something holy. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And then the real journey begins. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next part. The hidden initiation. The moment when the darkness officially chooses you not to destroy you, but to initiate you into a deeper version of yourself. You don't want to miss this. When the darkness chooses you, the hidden initiation, there comes a moment in the life of every shadow-chosen one when the veil begins to lift. Not all at once, not dramatically like in the movies, but slowly like mist clearing at dawn. You start to notice patterns that were always there. You feel the silence behind people's words. You sense the lies behind smiles. You begin to see the world not as it pretends to be, but as it is. And it's in that shift, that subtle but seismic shift, that the hidden initiation begins. Not everyone recognizes it. Many run from it. But for those who are ready, something inside says, this is it. This is what I was made for. The calling doesn't come with trumpets. It comes with breakdowns. You lose something or someone you thought you couldn't live without. The job, the relationship, the identity, all gone in a flash, not as punishment but as purification. The universe strips you of all illusions, not to hurt you, but to free you. You're left naked, raw, trembling in front of a mirror that no longer lies. And in that space, in that void where everything familiar has crumbled, you are finally ready to meet your shadow. The shadow isn't evil. That's the first lie you must unlearn. The shadow is simply the part of you you've been taught to reject: your rage, your lust, your shame, your grief. All of it buried deep so you could fit into a world that fears anything real. But a shadow-chosen one doesn't run from the real. We live for it. We seek it. Because we know truth is the only path to freedom. So, the initiation begins with confrontation. You will be asked to face what you've spent your whole life avoiding. Your wounds, your secrets, the parts of yourself you swore no one would ever see. And here's the paradox. The more you hide them, the more they control you. But when you face them, when you bring them into the light of your awareness, without judgment, you take back your power. You realize that your darkness isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. Sit with your anger. Ask it what it's trying to protect. Sit with your fear. Ask it what it's trying to warn you about. Sit with your sadness. Ask it where it hurts. These are not emotions to be suppressed. They are messengers. And when you stop resisting them, they begin to transform. You cry not because you're weak, but because something old and heavy is finally being released. You scream not out of madness, but because your soul is cracking open to make room for more light. This is the alchemy of the Shadow Chosen One, turning pain into power, turning wounds into wisdom. But understand this, no one will clap for you during this process. There are no medals for inner work, no trophies for resilience. The world won't understand what you're going through. They'll call it a phase. They'll say you're being dramatic. They'll try to fix you, distract you, pull you back into the matrix of numbness. That's why the initiation is so lonely, because it's sacred, and sacred things are rarely understood by the masses. You will want to quit. You will beg for it to end. But something in you, something ancient, will keep going. And that's how you know you're being guided, not by voices in the sky, but by a compass buried deep in your soul, a knowing, a fire, a whisper that says, keep going, you're almost there. It won't make sense to your mind, but your soul will recognize it as truth. And then something strange begins to happen. You stop identifying with your pain. You stop seeing yourself as broken. You realize that the very things that made you feel cursed are what make you powerful. Your sensitivity? It's your superpower. Your empathy. It's your radar. Your intensity. It's your fuel. You were never too much. You were just surrounded by people who couldn't hold your depth. That realization is the moment the initiation completes its first phase. You rise from the ashes of your former self, not a victim, not a survivor, but a sovereign being. You no longer need validation. You no longer seek approval. You walk not with arrogance, but with sacred confidence. Because you know who you are now. You've met your shadow. You've danced with your demons. And you are still here. But there's one last question you must ask yourself before moving deeper. Now that you've seen the truth of who you are, what are you willing to do with it? That's where we go next. Into purpose, into service, into the sacred path that only the Shadow Chosen Ones can walk. You've been chosen for a reason. But that reason isn't about personal glory. It's about collective healing. Are you ready to step into that responsibility? The sacred burden, why Shadow Chosen Ones are here to heal the world. There is a moment after the fire, after the ashes settle, when the Shadow Chosen One realizes they weren't just meant to survive, they were meant to serve. Not in the way the world typically defines service, not in some grand performative way, but in the quiet, often unseen, deeply transformative work of healing what others are too afraid to even look at. And that's the sacred burden. It's not a punishment. It's a purpose. It's a calling so ancient, so woven into the very threads of your soul, that once you remember it, you can't go back to sleep. You see, the world doesn't heal through lectures or slogans. It heals through presence, through energy, through the invisible transmission of someone who has walked through their own hell and emerged with a heart that still chooses love. That's what a Shadow Chosen One becomes. A walking sanctuary, a living permission slip, not by preaching, but by being. You carry in your aura the codes of survival, the frequency of forgiveness, the vibration of raw, unfiltered truth, and people feel it even if they don't consciously understand it. But this is not a path for the faint of heart, because once you've been through the initiation, the universe begins to send people to you, broken people, lost people, people who see in you something they can't explain. They are drawn to your depth, to your silence, to the way you don't flinch when they show you their wounds. They might not even know why they're drawn to you, but something in their soul recognizes that you've been where they are. And if you survived, maybe they can too. But here's where the burden comes in. You are not here to save anyone. Let that truth sink in. You are not here to carry their pain, to fix their stories, or to sacrifice your energy for their healing. That is the old martyr paradigm. What you are here to do is to hold space, to be a mirror, to embody the truth so fully, so unapologetically, that it awakens the same truth in others. Healing is contagious when it's embodied. You don't have to speak a word. Your presence becomes the medicine. And yet, this is exhausting. Because being a shadow chosen one means you feel everything. You walk into a room and pick up on all the unspoken grief, the hidden rage, the quiet desperation. You feel it in your bones. Sometimes you don't even know what's yours and what isn't. This is the price of your sensitivity. But it's also the proof of your power, because you were given that sensitivity not as a curse, but as a tool of discernment. It teaches you how to navigate energy, how to read between the lines of reality, how to sense the truth behind the performance. Still, you must protect your energy like it's sacred fire, because it is. You have to learn boundaries, not as a wall to keep people out, but as a sanctuary to keep your essence intact. Not everyone deserves access to your light. Not everyone is ready to receive what you embody. And that's okay. You are not here for everyone. You are here for those who are ready, those who are willing, those who are capable of walking their own path once they've been reminded of it. And let's talk about loneliness, because it's real. Being a shadow chosen one often means walking alone. Not because you're unloved, but because most people haven't earned the right to walk beside you. They haven't done the work. They're still asleep in the matrix of distraction and denial. And while you can still love them, you can no longer pretend to be one of them. You've outgrown the illusions, you've tasted truth, you've stared into the void and smiled. That changes a person. So yes, it's lonely, but it's also liberating. Because once you stop trying to fit in, you start attracting others who are also walking the path of the awakened. Fellow warriors, fellow mystics, fellow light-bringers who were also forged in shadow. Together you form a silent tribe, a soul family, scattered across the globe, but connected through the frequency of remembrance. And that's when you realize you were never truly alone. Now, let me ask you something piercing. If you accepted that your life was never meant to be easy, but sacred, how would you walk through it differently? Would you still complain about the weight, or would you start training your body to carry it with grace? Would you still ask for it to end, or would you ask for the strength to keep going? Because the world doesn't need more comfort seekers, it needs warriors of the soul. People who are willing to go into the depths and come back with treasure. People who are not afraid to bleed truth. People who are not afraid to be misunderstood, isolated, or even broken because they know that every fracture is just another doorway to the divine. This is why you're here. Not to escape the world, but to transform it. Not by force, but by frequency. Simply by existing as your whole, authentic, awakened self, you begin to shift the collective. One interaction at a time, one conversation, one act of radical honesty, one moment of deep presence. That's the power of the shadow chosen one. We don't change the world with noise. We change it in silence, in depth, in devotion. And yes, it's a burden, but it's also a blessing, because once you accept who you are fully, fiercely, unapologetically, you stop trying to be anything else. You stop chasing purpose and start embodying it. You stop searching for meaning and start becoming it. You become the storm and the stillness, the wound and the healing, the question and the answer. And when you do that, the world notices, even if it doesn't know why. You become a mystery, a miracle, a movement, quiet but unstoppable. The final revelation, becoming the shadow and the light. There is a moment so rare, so raw, when the shadow chosen one no longer sees a separation between the darkness and the light. That moment is not loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. But it is the most sacred of all awakenings. It comes after the long storm, after the silence, after the sacred burden has been carried through fire and rain. It's the moment when you realize you were never meant to choose between your shadow and your light. You were meant to become both. You see, the final revelation is not about transcendence. It's not about escaping the human experience or floating off into some blissful realm of eternal peace. It's about embodiment. It's about bringing the divine into the dirt. It's about standing with your feet deeply rooted in the earth while your soul burns like a star. It's about holding your fear in one hand and your power in the other and realizing they were never enemies. They were always collaborators in your evolution. When you reach this place, you no longer reject any part of yourself. You no longer wage war on your past. You no longer ask for your suffering to be erased. Instead, you bless it. You bow to it. You thank it for shaping you. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the humiliation, the failure, they become sacred texts written in the language of transformation. You read them not with bitterness, but with reverence, because now you understand everything that hurt you was also healing you. Everything that broke you was also building you. And what's most powerful is this: you no longer need the world to recognize you. You no longer need validation or titles or a platform. You've become your own source of truth. You've become your own sanctuary. You walk into rooms and shift energy without saying a word. You hold eye contact and people feel themselves unravel. You listen and others feel heard for the first time in years. That's what happens when shadow and light merge inside a human being. You become a living portal to something eternal. But the final test is perhaps the hardest. It's when the universe asks you to do the unthinkable. Love yourself completely. Not just the parts you've polished and healed, but the parts that are still messy. The parts that still ache. The parts you're still learning to hold without shame. Can you sit with your inner child when they cry? Can you embrace your anger without letting it control you? Can you look at your own reflection and say, I see you. I love you. You are enough even now. This is what the world needs. Not more perfect people, but more whole ones. More beings who are willing to live as paradox, who can laugh while grieving, who can lead while still learning, who can be fierce and gentle, wild and wise, shadow and light without apology. That is the final revelation. That is the true awakening. Not some detached transcendence, but full spectrum embodiment. You are here to be the bridge between heaven and earth, between the seen and unseen, between the pain and the peace. And now, as you stand at the edge of this knowing, I ask you one last question, not to answer with your mind, but with your life. Now that you remember who you are, what will you become? The world is waiting. The shadows are calling. And your light is ready.